We are on the cusp of a busy political season with issues and races that will affect you and your family. At the top of the ticket is the race for president. The Iowa caucus is tomorrow, the official start to the nomination process. And over the next couple of months, voters get to whittle down who will be on the ballot. But as we've seen, there's a battle taking shape over who gets to be on the ballot.
We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Former President Donald Trump's at the center of the conversation because of his role on what happened on January 6, 2021, and trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Last month, the Colorado Supreme Court and Maine Secretary of State ruled to pull Trump's name from the primary ballots, pointing to the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which bars elected officials from holding office if they engaged in insurrection. Those decisions are on hold right now until the U.S. Supreme Court weighs in. More on that in a second. But a number of groups and voters in several other states have joined in on efforts to remove Trump from the 2024 ballots. Many of those challenges have failed. Then there's Missouri, where the wind seems to be blowing in the other direction. And top Republicans, many of whom are running for higher office, are threatening to find a way to remove President Biden from the ballot, like Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, who's running for governor. He tweeted recently, "I expect the Supreme Court to overturn this. If not, secretaries of state will step in and ensure the new legal standard for Trump applies equally to Biden," though he tried to walk that language back a bit on CNN last week.
My real concern is that Colorado and Maine have decided that they themselves can suddenly throw off political parties or political individuals that they don't like. That is not good for our country. It's not good for Republicans to do that. It's not good for Democrats to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because now in Missouri, we are seeing Republicans work to suddenly throw off political parties or political individuals that they don't like. Fellow candidate for governor, Senator Bill Eigel, introduced a bill in the Missouri Senate that would essentially give the governor, the job he wants, the power to single out a candidate they deem associated with an actual or threatened invasion of illegal immigrants into Missouri. The General Assembly could only get said person back on the ballot with a 2/3 majority in both chambers.
The Democratic moves in states like Colorado and Maine have started a discussion where we've begun to ask ourselves, hey, there are threats to our sovereignty here. There are invasions going on, and maybe these individuals shouldn't be allowed on the ballot.
Another bill from Harrisonville, Republican Senator Rick Bratton, is designed to keep anyone targeted by a U.S. House impeachment inquiry from a ballot. Not a downright impeachment or conviction, an inquiry. And Republicans on Capitol Hill have admitted they're still looking for evidence in this. There are plenty of ramifications here, so let's discuss with Alan Rostrom, professor with UMKC School of Law. Thank you so much for coming back on. Help us sort through all this.
Sure.
On the surface, this looks like a political fight, like a you can't hurt our guy, we'll hurt your guy. Republicans kind of bringing out the Uno reverse card, so to speak. What does this say about what's going on right now? What does the law tell us?
Well, legislation gets proposed for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes you really think it might get enacted and take effect. Sometimes I think it's really more expressive in nature. You're trying to make a point. And I think that's what some of Missouri's leaders here are really trying to do is, I don't think they really expect that Joe Biden will be disqualified from the ballot, but they're trying to make a point. They don't think Donald Trump should be either.
And in an election year, which I'm sure that has to be underscored.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a big deal, obviously. I mean, the 14th Amendment is, has this provision, and people can raise their issues about that. But if that ultimately led to a leading candidate, I mean, right now the front runner, frankly, not only for the Republican nomination, but for the general election, for that person to be taken off the ballot, it would be a huge deal.
Yeah, flip side of it being an election year too, though, is that a lot of these candidates that we're talking about are running for higher office right now. And as you said, there's maybe some motivation behind a little bit of it.
It's all inevitably political. Obviously, It's political for Trump and Biden. It's political for the Missouri officials that we're talking about who are taking positions on this. And frankly, the judges aren't immune from politics either. They are very aware of the ramifications of all of this for all the political things going on.
Mm-hmm. What does the law say about what's going on here? Can state legislatures cherry pick who's going to be on the ballot? It would set an interesting precedent.
Yeah, it's really hard to say because it really just hasn't come up too much before. So for the most part, I mean, certainly with presidential elections, we just haven't had issues like this before. And so the 14th Amendment provision, for example, about insurrection and that sort of thing that's being raised against Donald Trump, it doesn't say who will decide. It just talks about you being disqualified in certain circumstances if certain conditions are met, but it doesn't say anything about who will decide. So is it state election officials? Is it the state legislature? Is it a state court? Is it a federal court? No one knows.
You teach constitutional law.
Yes.
So this is your wheelhouse. So what are you watching right now?
Well, you know, it'll be interesting, most of all, to see what the Supreme Court does. They're going to have arguments coming up here early February on the case about the Colorado decision to disqualify Trump from the ballot. And, you know, it's really interesting because it's one of these things where you can either look at the big picture or you can look at each individual argument. And the Colorado decision actually seems pretty strong on a lot of the individual separate pieces. But then if you look at the big picture, there's a pretty strong argument that it would just be strange and perhaps inappropriate to disqualify a person that millions of people want to vote for.
Yeah, the critics say, well, the people should ultimately have the decision here.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. All right, Alan Rossman with UMKC, thank you so much for walking us through that.